How's it going, you guys? So I want to make a video talking about my experience the last week or two. At the beginning of this month, December 1st, December 6th, it was officially an entire year on a carnivore / keto diet. I had done like 3 different experiments where I tried adding carbs in to increase my performance. Because I am a competitive athlete, training, 2 times a day, 6 to 7 days a week, and I have a really hardcore training workload, and many other people who are active claim when they add a little bit of carbs in, doing certain ketogenic protocols, they experience better performance, or some kind of like strength gains or something like that. Every single time I added carbs in, I did not really notice a benefit to my performance. In fact, many times I noticed a decrease in my performance. For whatever reason, I'm not sure, but that has been my experience. And when I did originally go keto or carnivore, which, by the way, carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet unless you add honey and other weird things to it. But essentially, I noticed an insane increase in my sports performance when I originally went keto. And I noticed, especially I think there's many reasons why, but one thing is for sure, compared to when I used to run on a high carb diet with, the same amount of protein, I just didn't work well. My performance sucked. I felt like crap. I couldn't sleep. It was horrible. One whole year of a ketogenic diet made me feel amazing, made me feel like I could sleep all of a sudden. My lifelong insomnia went away. All sorts of digestive problems went away. Irritable bowel syndrome completely went away. My sports performance drastically improved. My stamina and endurance while doing hard sparring rounds with amateur fighters and professional fighters as well significantly improved. I noticed in my very first fight, I was fighting a guy who was on a carb-based diet, and I was on a ketogenic diet for probably like 10 months at that time. And man, he hardly really did much the entire time. He threw like a kick, maybe some punches every so often. But the whole fight, I was just going nonstop. And I didn't really feel gassed at all the entire fight. But he looked like he was gassing, and he hardly really threw much combinations. He threw a couple strikes every 30 seconds. I was constantly working the whole time. And so the point is, compared to all the carb-based fighters that I've been training with, I'm like an Energizer bunny. I can just go, go, go. And throughout my entire life, I've noticed, when I was a kid, I used to go long periods of time without eating, and the whole time I'd be outside just exercising. I would go on, 1 to 3 hour walks. Or I'd be at the gym for up to 3 to 4 hours, which was, I know it, thinking back now, that's not beneficial, it's not the right way to train, but I didn't care. I've always been active and addicted to exercise, and usually I would do some kind of fasting for the majority of the day, and then when I would eat, it would be like, like baked potatoes loaded up with cheese, or something like that. Anyway, and I used to drink a lot of energy drinks and stuff throughout certain parts of my life. But anyway, the point here is, my body just seems to do super well when it's deprived of carbohydrates. And so, like, through doing this keto / carnivore experiment, I've actually found that carbohydrates don't really seem to give me much of a benefit. I've noticed if I eat, over 80 grams of carbs in a day, I start to see diminishing returns. And I think that's because it kicks me out of ketosis. And because I exercise so much, my body can maintain, about like 1 nanogram per deciliter. Is that the proper measurement? But I can keep like a 1 on my ketone monitor, despite eating 50 grams of net carbs or so in certain times. Because I train so often, my body just soaks up the glucose and swaps out gluconeogenesis for whatever carbs I might eat. But I went the majority of the year without eating any carbs at all, like eating mostly just meat, sometimes broccoli and stuff like that. Liver would be my main source of carbs most of the time. And then I would add some berries in during certain periods just as a test. And so the only benefit from carbs that I noticed was I felt like a mental upliftment, maybe like fuel for my brain, kind of. But it wasn't a significant difference. I noticed the main thing is actually I noticed if I eat too much like butter or too much fat in one meal, unless it's like olive oil. Like I used to do like bulletproof coffee for so long, and I noticed the more butter I added to my bulletproof coffee, the more crappy I felt. I think it kind of just sits in my stomach maybe. I don't know. It seemed to mess with my circulation. But I know a lot of people that are athletes that do keto, and they have to add 4 tablespoons of butter every couple hours to maintain their caloric needs. For me, I notice I do better if I'm doing bulletproof coffee, to just do like eggs, raw eggs, and then protein powder, and maybe some MCT oil, or just do MCT oil and some protein powder. That usually makes me feel super energized and great. But yeah, I notice a more moderate fat intake. Like what I notice really seems to work well for me, especially now because I've been allowing myself more berries and stuff since it's been a year. I'm kind of like I'm not interested in attaching myself to this ketogenic identity. Now I'm focused more on just feeling good and seeing if there's other things outside of strict keto that can make me feel good. I did like 80% fat, 20% protein or whatever for quite some time. I noticed that high fat intake was too hard for me to sustain. I didn't feel good, and it just wasn't necessary. So a higher protein intake and a more moderate fat intake definitely made me feel better, and I had similar ketone readings. I think adding more protein, I think it lowers ketone readings a bit, but not enough to really matter unless you have epilepsy or something. But even then, there's studies that compare Atkins' diet was 65% protein, 65% fat, 30% protein, and then like 5% carbs. And that Atkins diet compared to the 90% fat, 7% protein, 3% carbs, and there's no difference in epilepsy symptoms between the two. And then ketone readings either. So anyway, my point here is, who cares about the ketone reading? There's studies that show higher protein intake and lower fat on a keto diet isn't really even relevant for epilepsy. And for people who are trying to lose weight, who cares about your ketones? Care more about cutting carbs and exercising more. The biggest thing is, do you feel like crap or do you feel good? And so again, I just found the higher fat intake doesn't seem to work well for me. I tried all sorts of things, unless it's like olive oil and coconut oil. I don't know why. I think heavy cream sits with me better than butter. I don't know why. I think it might have to do with digestion. But so what really seems to work perfect for me. So here's what I've been noticing lately. I wake up in the morning. I'll take anywhere from 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine or something, just a pure caffeine pill. And I don't have to do that. In fact, I've actually done no caffeine experiments especially on keto, I notice I can go a long time without caffeine and not really, it doesn't even matter. I notice caffeine makes less of a difference on keto now. Like, I just feel good no matter what. Anyway, so my routine now, because I'm an athlete, I wake up probably around 10 a.m., take a caffeine pill, and then I go to the gym, or I do my MMA workout or whatever. And I will work out for, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm doing kickboxing or Muay Thai, the class will last about an hour. Then I'll try to get someone to drill with or spar with for another hour at least. So I'll go 2 hours, and so it'll be about 1 p.m. by the time I'm done with that. Or if I'm at the gym, I'll do hardcore squats or overhead press, whatever it is for the day. I'll do a hardcore strength training workout and try to add some kind of conditioning after that. And I notice, since I'm fasted and especially if I have caffeine, I have unlimited energy, it feels like. So I'll do that 2 to 3 hour workout, whichever one it is. And then I want to go out on a long walk. And I'll just walk. And because I'm fasted, my brain starts working so much better. And that's usually when I pump out my best videos. I notice it's a lot harder for me to make videos and be creative, and even to exercise if I'm eating, even if I have bulletproof coffee, whatever it is in the morning. Bulletproof coffee does better than drinking a pre-workout with honey. Bulletproof coffee feels better for me, works better for me than eating, eggs and toast or something stupid like that, or eggs and fruit or whatever. But fasting with a little bit of caffeine in the morning hits a spot better than anything else. And so at a minimum, I will fast 16 hours and then break my fast probably around 4 p.m. But I've actually noticed, I think it's because I've been doing keto for so long. So since I ended keto, well, I didn't really end it, but since December 6th or so, like the beginning of December, I tried like this really stupid processed sugar experiment where I ate a giant Hershey's bar that has 100 grams of pure refined sugar and an original green Monster energy drink that has like 60 grams of sugar in it. I tried it pre-workout, I tried it post-workout, and I tried it on a rest day. And I did that for like 5 days after my 1-year anniversary on keto. And I noticed my insulin sensitivity is greatly improved. I don't feel sluggish. I don't feel like bad at all. In fact, I feel so much like my response to sugar has been improved because I deprived my body of sugar for so long. Then after that sugar experiment, I said, damn, I think sugar is the cause of heart disease. I think vegetable oil is the cause of heart disease. I think way too much carbs and not enough activity is a cause of heart disease. Whatever. I just felt ugly. And so I said, you know what do I think now, since I've been a year on vegan, I've been a year on keto, what is the real cause of heart disease here? And so what would I do if I wanted to prevent it? And I thought, you know what? High intensity interval training, fasting, because if you're fasting, it doesn't matter what causes heart disease in your diet if you're not eating throughout the day. You're giving your body a chance to heal the arteries and all that, not giving it any sugar or saturated fat. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start fasting. I'm going to see how I do. Watch interviews of George St. Pierre, of Ronda Rousey, and David St. Clair, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, obviously Jason Fung. I have his book, The Diabetes Code. And, so I was like, you know what? I'm going to try intermittent fasting. If GSP can do that, he's in the same sport as me, and he's been doing this for so long. He's one of the greatest of all time. Why would I have any reason to think, I'm not going to try that. He's full of crap. Like, I'm sure there's something more to it than Lane Norton and other calories in, calories out people think. Anyway, I started fasting, and so, so look, fasting until about, I would say the sweet spot is 18 to 22 hours, all right? Around the 20-hour mark is probably ideal. Around the 20-hour mark in my day, if I break my fast, and I can eat at the 20-hour mark and then the 22-hour mark. I can get all of the calories I need. The main thing I'm concerned about is protein. Especially if I'm burning fat for fuel, I notice I don't seem to need to eat as much calories anymore to sustain all my exercise. Like, people who see my routine, my workouts, my activity, and my fasting, and my lack of carbs, and my performance, they will think that there's got to be something more. Like, oh, this guy's got to be eating carbs under the weather, or under the blanket, or whatever, like behind the scenes. But I'm not. I think my body legitimately is getting its calories from my body fat, and it's fueling exercise with that. And so I think as long as I get enough protein, I'm okay. However, I feel best if I eat 1.5 to 2 pounds of red meat after the 18-hour fasting mark, and I combine that with berries. So that's kind of what I started doing. So I'll break my fast with about a pound of red meat, and I'll put blueberries, strawberries, whatever. I'll put berries in there, and I get frozen berries, put them in a bowl, maybe 1 to 2 cups, I don't know, something like that. And then I put the red meat on top after I've cooked it, usually in water. Might put some eggs in there too, because I like the mixture. And then I'll put those on top of the frozen berries to thaw out the berries, because frozen berries are so much cheaper and more affordable, and I don't have to worry about them expiring, and they're fresher and more nutrient dense. At least I believe they probably would be. And so, because like the meat and the eggs take so long to cool off, I don't want to sit there and wait. So the mixture of the frozen berries and the meat, I can cook the meat, and I could probably eat it raw if I wanted to. Don't have to wait for it to cool. And then there's something about that mixture of fruit and meat and eggs. And then if I add olive oil to it, I don't know why, but that just makes me feel so good. So the fasting makes me feel euphoric. It makes me feel like I have unlimited energy. And I think there's a boost in neuroepinephrine is one reason. My eyesight improves while I'm fasted. I think the other thing is I'm in a deeper state of ketosis probably. And when you fast for that long, especially since I exercise, I train 1 to 2 times per day during the fast. I notice, obviously, your body's going to be so depleted of glycogen that even if you eat 2 cups of berries, and again, I'm a highly trained insulin-sensitive athlete, the fasting for 20 hours, the heavy glycogen depleting exercise, 2 cups of berries in generally will have no more than 50 grams of net carbs, probably 60 grams total, in the amount that I eat. So already most people can maintain ketosis at that level. But then, because I'm fasted and I'm exercising during the fast and I've been fat adapted for so long, my body just uses those berries to refuel its glycogen tank. And again, you don't even need carbs for that, okay? As long as you eat adequate amounts of fat and protein, your body can actually refill glycogen from free fatty acids in the glycerol backbone or triglycerides, and then if it needs to, amino acids like alanine. And so you don't really need dietary carbs. But I notice I do feel just a little bit more vigorous, I guess. But it doesn't seem to have a drastic improvement in my sports performance. But I'm willing to bet that maybe adding some low glycemic load, low carb berries in there probably would just help your body recycle glycogen a little bit faster. But we know from the studies from Stephen Finney and Jeff Volok that it's not necessary. That keto adapted athletes on 20 grams net carbs or lower per day compared to high carb athletes eating like over 400 grams a day, and elite athletes have no difference in the time it takes for glycogen restoration. In fact, ketogenic athletes actually refill glycogen faster post-exercise. So Anyway, that's what I noticed works for me. I notice I actually don't do so well with high salt. I don't think I need high salt. And I think that was an issue that I had for a long time, is I kept thinking like, I need more salt, I need more salt. And then I tried with the potassium and shit. And I noticed, you know what? What I actually need is just to follow what my body wants. So fasting gets my body really hungry. And then when I'm really hungry, I chow down on like a pound of red meat. I add just a little bit of berries and some eggs and some olive oil. And it's a relatively high fat, like low carb, low glycemic load, high nutrient density food, and it's super low in anti-nutrients too. I think any logical person would say berries are probably some of the lowest in anti-nutrients. For me, you know, having irritable bowel syndrome and psoriasis when I was vegan, and just switching to an autoimmune paleo diet removed all my irritable bowel syndromes and psoriasis. So I feel like this is a better version of the paleo diet, really. I think this is kind of similar to like Primal Blueprint, maybe paleo, or the Perfect Health diet. I think adding some sweet potatoes or some tubers in there wouldn't hurt too much for athletes. I think the main thing is eating nutrient-dense, calorically dense foods, but only when your body really needs them. And I think what's driving a lot of disease in the world is, you know, for one, I think it's overconsumption of carbs. I think it all has to do with, I don't think it's calories in versus calories out. I think it's energy. I think it's like, I mean, it's basically the same thing, but I think fat and carbohydrate outside of protein. I think that's what matters. I think protein is its own thing. But it can bleed over into the rest of the discussion. I noticed the more saturated fat that I ate during keto, the leaner I got, but I didn't feel good. But I noticed I kept getting leaner and I was losing weight. It was really weird. Like when I started eating 2 sticks of butter a day. Okay, that's like 16 tablespoons. And I would add as many tablespoons of olive oil as I could to my food. And I went from like 186 consistently down to 180 consistently. And that was weird. Okay? And after about 4 weeks of doing more butter, with way more calories than before, I went down to 178 pounds. And I was like, whoa, what the hell? So I felt horrible, could hardly breathe, and I was losing weight with more calories. So I just removed the butter. My weight went back up to 185, 186-ish. And I was like, wow, what the hell? So I think that there's something to that where people say the more fat they eat, the leaner they get. It's really weird. There's definitely something more to this calories in versus calories out thing. So anyway, I don't want to keep you guys too long, but big takeaway here is I don't think that anyone needs carbs. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't think people need fiber. My bowel movements are way better just removing grains, removing most fibrous vegetables that are low in caloric density. I think berries seem to be the most like neutral. But I think the less fiber I eat, the easier my bowel movements are. My best bowel movements have probably came from eating mostly red meat. And then adding berries in there didn't really seem to change them much. I was having one really good one every single morning. But when I add like broccoli and things to it, it just gets bigger. Broccoli and carrots, it just gets bigger in the morning. I think I'm just pooping out extra undigested food. But when I add like, if I add nuts and seeds, if I add tubers, if I add especially whole grains, I get constipated for quite some time, or it'll come up in little chunks, and it doesn't matter how long. My gut microbiome, I feel so miserable for weeks. I'm like, it's not even worth it. But maybe it'll adapt eventually. But anyway, the other thing I recognize is I do better fasted. as long as I get enough protein per day, I think that's the only thing that matters as far as sports performance and my health. Beef seems to be the best for me. I like pork as well. I'm not really as big of a fan of chicken, but if I have to eat it because of like affordability, I will. Eggs, I think, are good as a side. Berries seem to actually make me feel a little bit better, but not if I eat too much carbs. Too much carbs in general makes me feel kind of weird. What was I going to say? And the most important thing to take away is, you know, there's people like Charles Washington, the Anderson family, Charlene Anderson and Joe Anderson, Kelly Hogan. People have been living for well over 10 years on an all-meat diet. And there's Owsley the Bear Stanley, who lived over 50 years on all-meat diet and died when he was 76 in a car accident after beating throat cancer, which I believe was from drug use. But so to me, I really don't think that you need plant foods at all. I think this, personally, my opinion is that this diet is very safe. I think it's healthier than any other diet out there. It's just to base your diet on meat and then eat tubers and eat berries and vegetables if you feel like it. You know, and if you have health problems, base your diet on red meat, and then the rest of the pyramid will depend on what health problem you have. Diabetes, digestive problems, etc. But I can tell you for sure, adding processed refined sugar to my diet is just, after a while, it just starts causing stomach pains, start causing just weird problems. So without a doubt, grains, sugar, and other, you know, things that are removed from the paleo diet, original paleo diet by Lauren Cordain, I think those are big things. So anyway, that's just my experience. Let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys have any alternative hypothesis? And I'll talk to you on the next video.